Dom, what up, man? How are you?
Good. How are you, man?
Nice day here in Colorado today, right?
Oh yeah, beautiful sun. As you can tell, I'm outside here
Yep.
in
Yeah.
Airbnb. Yeah.
So, man, I'm gonna be super honest, right? I'm gonna be super
Mm.
honest with everybody. You came up here for a couple days to train, right?
Yes, sir.
And we were at practice yesterday. We hadn't seen each other since you had come up, and you just came up to me and you said you liked the whole idea of what I do. You asked, you're like, yo, I'd love to talk to you about it. And we said, hey, let's just do a podcast.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Talk
Yeah,
to me,
man.
man. Talk to me. What made you come up to me yesterday and start this conversation?
Well, I mean, obviously, like you said, I've come out here and trained with you guys over the years, and I really like, training at elevation and the culture of the gym in particular. And I've mentioned this to you guys before too. I've been in MMA for about 16 years now since I was younger, and I've traveled a lot, and I've trained with a lot of people, a lot of gyms, and man, I mean, there was something, and like you said, you were going to be brutally honest. I'm going to be honest too. There's just something a little different that I got a feeling from you guys in the culture, especially from you, just the mindset. And there seemed to be a level of understanding that I knew when I started to see more about, of the Gospel of Fire podcast and things that you would share and just the culture in the gym. I said, this guy knows something. I know Elliot, he's been through something, so that I think what made me come up to you yesterday was just to a point to where listening to some of your videos and stuff, and then reading most of your posts, and just the attitude and the spirit that I just feel that you give off, and I could feel that, man. Like one thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one thing that I get a lot out of your stuff is humility, you know and that man is that's if you know anything about humility, and from what I'm seeing you definitely do, it's something it's not common. It's not.
Well, we
And
live in this world, right, where everyone's like, look what I did. Like
yes,
even the idea of posting on social media, it's
exactly.
it's like, look at me. Look how great I am,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And that separates us from my perspective. That takes us into this competition of me versus you, right? And
Hmm.
almost as in this idea of there's not enough food for all of us to eat if we had to eat. And I
Yeah.
don't believe that, right? I
Hmm.
don't believe that. I believe that there's plenty of food. There's plenty of
True.
food for all of us. We just have to find a way to share the food appropriately.
Yeah, I agree with that big time.
So something
And
must have happened. Go ahead, go, you go.
hmm oh, well, no, what were you gonna say? Something must have happened.
Something must have happened with you, right? Because
Yeah,
like this,
yeah.
this kind of work doesn't this like the stuff that I talk about, it doesn't resonate with everybody, right? Some people are like, dude,
Exactly.
shut the fuck up. And that's totally fine, right? Like,
Hmm.
what do they say? If you want to be liked, sell ice cream. Otherwise, get
Yeah,
used to not being liked.
yeah, yeah.
So
No, true, true.
what happened to you? Tell me your story, man. Like everyone's got a story. Where does your story start? And how does it connect back to me and you, I guess, is my question.
Well, a lot of it, and is that humility part. And like you said, not everybody can understand it. And I think that I could just feel the level of understanding that you have from it, and I could tell he's been through something too. And for me, it's a brokenness you encounter in life, and it happens to everybody. And the thing is one of the things that I believe is you can, in these situations where you just get broken, you're just broken. You get bitter or you get better. And I've had a lot of mentors tell me that, and at times I didn't really like think about it too much, but I would notice, how am I thinking, or how am I processing this failure, and am I getting bitter? Am I getting, jealous of other guys' success? Because, like you said, my story starts. I was about 15 years old. I was always in martial arts. I probably did, taekwondo, karate, traditional stuff for about a few years when I was younger, and then my father was a huge fan of boxing, so we grew up watching boxing. Me and my twin brother. I have a twin brother who's a professional boxer too, actually, and we loved boxing, and it brought us close to my dad. It was something we could always do. But about 15 years old, my church. So we were raised in the church, and my church actually had an MMA program, and there was a guy there. He was a youth pastor there. His name was Benjamin Medell, a really good friend of mine. And I'm about 15 years old at the time. And the Ultimate Fighter, I think this was 2005. So I don't know if the Ultimate Fighter had started in 2005 or the
04 was the first one. 04
okay,
was
so
the
yeah.
first one.
So yeah, it had started already for about a year.
Right.
And I remember seeing, you know, this like program at our church. It was like, you know, be an Ultimate Fighter for God or something like that. I was like, oh, okay, you know, sure, whatever. Maybe I'll try this class. So I went, and like I said, the youth pastor at the time, he was a blue belt, and he was pretty good. And man, I just started there, literally in the middle of our church, the youth center. You know, the youth pastors bought some mats and threw them down, and we were just, you know, rolling all over the place, man. That's kind of where it started for me.
And so that's where the martial arts journey started.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then what
Yes,
happened
sir.
from there? What was the journey like for you through martial arts?
Well, I am from there. I trained with them for about maybe 6 months to a year, and then I
I'm sorry,
found
let
another.
me ask you a question. How old are you right now?
31.
31. Okay, so go ahead. It's
Mm-hmm.
about 15 years ago, but so go ahead.
Yeah. So I met a guy at the time who was a regional champion in MMA promotion, and he was probably like, I think he was about 4 or 5-0, and he was good, you know. And so once I met him, I started training with him, and then I got the idea of, you know, maybe pursuing this a little more because I saw his success, and you know, I was actually doing well. I was taking to it, but I think I ended up staying with that group for about maybe a year and a half to 2 years, and then I just moved on to another gym. I found he was a brown belt at the time. His name's Jeff Messina. He's my jiu-jitsu coach, and I walked up to him after I had about 2 fights this time. I was 2-0, one amateur fight and one pro fight, and I was 19. I walked up to Jeff at a show, and I was like, "Hey man, I know you're a brown belt and one of the only ones in Houston, you know." And I had went to a seminar of his, and he was the only guy there to kind of roll me up. So I was like, okay, this guy could definitely teach me, you know. And from there, I started with Jeff at Revolution, and then there was Crew Bob Perez that I started with at 4 ounce, and this was in Houston too. Maybe around like 6 months to a year after that, and I kind of just intermingled there and you know trained where I could, and I think I had my pro debut at 19. And at the time, though, and I'm sure you remember, there wasn't a lot of 135ers. So my first 2 fights were at 145, and I didn't cut any weight.
There probably wasn't many 145ers either.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
there was only a handful.
I can remember Christian Allen having this problem.
Yeah.
Like, he had to fight 155 sometimes
Yeah.
because, and he'd come in at one like 49 because
Wow.
he just couldn't find it. You know,
Yeah.
he couldn't find it. So,
No, for sure.
And he was such a ninja that he beat the fuck out of them. You know, like,
Yeah.
But so anyway, yeah. So you're fighting 145. It's, you know, you're 19 years old. So now we're talking 10 years ago, right? It's early 2010, 2009, somewhere in there.
Exactly.
And where'd this journey go next?
So from there, my first amateur fight was 2008. I won by armbar, and then when I won that one by armbar, I was like, okay, this was a pretty fast win. I was like, maybe because I kind of based that off of if I was going to pursue it further, right? I mean, I was 18 at this time in high school, and it was my prom week, and I was like, man, I'm having my first MMA fight, so I didn't even go to prom. I didn't think about it, and I won. I beat the guy in 22 seconds. I caught an armbar. He was 24 at the time.
Okay.
And he was a good fighter. He went on to, we both went on to become pro, and he was a good professional fighter. He actually was really tough, you know. But after that, I based it. I was like, okay, I won in 22 seconds. Like, you know, I'm 18. This guy was 20. I can do this. Exactly. The faith just rose up in me, man. I was like, this is something I can do.
God, it's such a big thing, right? Like,
yeah,
like that confidence, man. That confidence, like that, like there's nothing better than belief. Like,
exactly.
You know, confidence is the best performance enhancing drug in the world. Like, if you give me a fighter, with confidence, or you give me a fighter with steroids, I'll take confidence.
Yeah,
you know,
man, I've never thought about it that way, but you're one. That is incredibly that's so true, very, very true.
You know, because if you don't have it, none of the steroids in the world will help you.
No,
right? No. They won't help you. You can be on EPO, steroids. You know, I don't care, but if you don't believe, man, you're fucked.
No, 100%. I've had it to where, man, at times that's the only way I made it through, you know, was through faith and belief, because You know, one of the things I was reading on the post you posted yesterday, and I really liked it, was uh, the sometimes, you know, about the pain of life making you want to quit.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my buddy about it, Gino, the guy that came up here with me.
Yeah.
I go, man, the only thing that's ever made me contemplate or wanting to quit MMA was the pain of life. Never a fight, never a performance, none of that. That's it. It gets to a point to where that's kind of easy. That's the reward, you know?
Tell me about that. Let's talk more about this. So you said the pain of life is the only thing that made you want to quit fighting. What was
Yeah.
what was the pain? What's the
So
pain?
when I started, like I said, I had good success, right? I won the first fight pretty fast. My pro debut, I fought a guy at the time. I was 19 and he was 27, and this was at 45. And this guy was actually a pretty good wrestler. He was much bigger than me, man. And I armbarred him in like 40 something seconds. And then I was like, okay, like I was really excited. I was like,
I got
I'm
all the
actually,
smoke. I got all the
yeah,
smoke, baby. Let me
exactly.
flex on you.
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly what happened. And
Yeah.
you know, at that time, it was good though. It was good for me, even though I didn't realize it, that there was a lot of time in between each of my fights because of the fact that there wasn't a lot of lighter guys. And so I would fight, and man, it'd be like a year until I fought again back in those times. And I trained the whole time. But some of the things that started to happen, you know, getting to the pain of life was, well, I started to win, right? And I hadn't lost. I had lost in some jujitsu tournaments, and you know that happened. It wasn't a big deal. I dealt with it then when I was younger, but I was 3-0 at this time. I fought another guy, I think in 2010, another guy that was undefeated, beat him, and I was 3-0. So now I'm 21, I think, at this time, 2011. So around
Somewhere
that
in there.
time, 2010, I didn't fight again until 2000. I believe it was 2014.
Oh
So it's
wow.
like
So it took a lot
2 years.
of time, but that's not terrible because you're young.
Yeah, no, and man, the whole time, dude, I've always been this type of fighter. I love training, you know, and when I was younger, I loved it more than fighting. Now it's kind of both, you know, but I love training more than anything. I wasn't that guy that was like, oh, put me in, put me in. I was the guy that was, when I had a good performance, I was like, okay, let's go work for another 6 months and get 10 times better. And, you know, to make sure that I would be even better the next time, you
That
know?
comes with some drawbacks too, though, right?
Yeah.
Because like
Hmm.
there's this thing, and because I feel I was the same way, right? I never loved fighting. I loved training, and I
Hmm.
didn't want to get a job. So like that
Yeah.
was what it was for me.
Yeah.
Um, and but the drawback of that is like each fight there's a lot of pressure,
Hmm.
right? You don't
Yes,
get good
exactly.
at fighting. You know, like you get
Exactly.
your skills are good, but
Yes.
there's a skill of the actual night. And
Yeah. Yeah.
like when you look at somebody like Cowboy, that's why he likes to fight all the time. Because
Yeah.
he doesn't the buildup of getting nervous doesn't happen. Right.
Hmm.
You were nervous. All right. I'm just nervous again. It doesn't go away. You just did this
Exactly.
2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it
Yeah.
was. So you get used to it and you're like, fuck it. It ain't that big of a deal. But when you go 6 months, when you go 3 years, oh fuck, here I
Yes.
go. Oh,
Yes.
talk
No, I
about
agree
yeah.
100%, man. And you're right. It created pressure because
Mm-hmm.
then it was like, okay, this guy's had good performances. He's trained 6 months and or whatever the time, you know, may have been between the fights. And now let's see what he's capable of. And obviously, you know, the fights get harder.
Mm-hmm.
So my fourth fight, my fourth pro fight, I was undefeated. I was on Legacy, and I fought another undefeated kid from Brazil, and we had fight of the year that night. And there was a lot of things that happened. You know, my um, just my nutrition and diet. You know, I was young, man. I didn't really know how to rehydrate, so I kind of gassed in the fight. But I never quit, and we pretty much ended up getting fight of the year. But that fight was the first one, and probably the only fight that I've taken the most damage in my career. Like we beat the crap out of each other, man. This was against Kyle Machado, and
Okay.
I had a little bit of a bad habit of ducking my head out of the clinch. So I took like maybe 4 or 5 knees straight to the nose, man, and there was just blood everywhere, you know. And then we were both cut, so it was an experience, man, like no other. I mean, up until that point, I mean, I was like I said, 24. I think I was 24 years old because this was 2014. I had never felt like that in my life, bro. I remember whenever they checked us in the second or third round, and we're just going all out, and we're pretty evenly matched in skill, so we're giving it to each other. And the doctor was like, I'm all bloody, mangled up, and he's like, you know, are you all right? And, you know, checking the cut. And I remember, man, the first words that came out of my mouth was like, I'm good. Like, let's go. Like, there's no way. But at the same time, Elliot, in my mind, I was like, oh God, I'm dying. I was like, this is fucking crazy.
Please
You
say,
know?
please say I'm not allowed to keep going.
Yeah,
You say it,
exactly.
because I don't want
Yeah.
to.
Oh man.
Man, so there's a thing, right? Like, when are you a fighter? And this, you have to, for me, in my opinion, you have to have this kind of fight. You have to have this kind of fight where it tests you. Because when you go out there and you armbar everybody in, you know, under a minute and you're smashing, you're not a fighter, you're winning. You're what's called a winner right now. This is all you've ever done. You haven't fought, right?
Yeah.
Fighters get their ass kicked.
Yes.
And then still fight, right? And then still fight. That's what fighters do.
Yeah.
You know? So having a tough fight where, oh my God, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
But then choosing to get off the stool in the second round. Exactly what you just described.
Yeah.
So
yeah, man. And you know, when I was telling the doctor that I was like observing myself almost. I'm like, I'm like, man, I'm dehydrated. I'm bleeding everywhere. I've swallowed a lot of blood. Like I am dead. Like there's nothing left. That's what my mind, I'm like, I'm just fighting. I don't even know how I'm here. But the words that came out of my mouth was like, I am not quitting. It's just something that's not even a question, you know? And then when they checked him and they were checking his cut, well, his eye, because his eye was pretty swollen. It was almost swollen shut at this time. And I didn't know at the time, obviously, but later on, me and this guy became good friends. And he told me his orbital was kind of messed up and his nose was broken. So they were checking him and I was like, oh, thank God. I was like, that's it. I was like, they got to stop it. I was like, he's done. And then they were like, nope, good to go. I was like, son of
fuck.
Yeah,
Fuck.
yeah, exactly. I was like, here we go, you know. But that man, that taught me so much. And that's, I think I can say, looking back now, that's when I really started to get a little piece of the humility, being able to admit that, you know. It's like some fighters would never admit that. And they would think that would be weak. But after a while, when I thought about it more, I'm like, this, to me, man, I think that's the maturity when you can admit things like that and talk about it and be open. It's, you know, like you don't have an ego or a chip on your shoulder to where you need to look invincible all the time. And, you know, in that fight, I didn't win in 30, 40 seconds. Like I got beat up and so did the other guy. And that was the first time that I tasted, you know, defeat, because I did end up losing a close decision in that one. And I mean, I was beat up, man. The next day, my face was so swollen, I couldn't even recognize myself. And I was like, damn, like this is very different than anything. Because up until that, I had won the first three like nothing, not even 2 minutes.
It's not even a fight.
Yeah. Well, the third fight, it went to the second round, like a minute into the second round, so 4 minutes. But I mean, it was a little bit of a scuffle. But what happened with that one is I almost knocked the guy out, tried to finish him, and then he kind of woke back up, and then we scrambled for a round, and then I armbarred him. It wasn't too bad, but it was definitely a step up from what I had experienced. And then this fight with Machado really started to open it up. So that fight I took maybe, I took about 3 years off after that one, man. And it wasn't planned. You know, I probably needed a good 9 to 12 months to rest anyways. Like that's how bad, like my nose was so messed up for about the cartilage for about maybe 7, 8 months. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even touch my nose. Like I told you, from ducking out of the clinch.
This is one of the things that kills me about fighting sometimes is those wars, man. Like they take your soul. They take a piece of you.
Oh yeah.
And when you have, like, for some reason, like the Robbie Lawler and Rory McDonald fight, those dudes didn't fight for a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Ooh, man.
Now look, that same fight, and it was okay though. Like everyone was accepting of it because it was a world title fight.
Yeah.
Just because it wasn't a world title fight doesn't mean you don't need time off.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And not just from the fighting. You can't go take damage in training again. You can't go, right? Like you need rest, months and months of rest. And this is the brutal end of fighting because you don't get it when you're young, right? You really don't, for the most part. Like you obviously took it. But for most people, but for most people, right? They heal up, the swelling on their face goes away. They take a couple weeks off and then they're back in looking for another fight. And I think this is not the good way to do it.
No, I agree, man. And I remember I felt the same way. I was, like I said, I was obviously needing at least 6 to 9 months, or maybe, close to a year. And I mean, I was always the type of guy, to accept that. I wasn't, especially looking at the mistakes I made in that fight. I was like, we'll take some time off. I'm going to heal up and, see what I did wrong and get better. And I think the next time, so that was 2014, and I didn't fight again until, well, actually, you know what, man, I made a mistake. That 2 to 3 year break was a little bit later, but I did take almost 2 years, because I fought him at the beginning of January of 2014, and then I fought like almost a year and a half later. And then that one, it was a close fight. I fought a guy that was an amateur boxer, and this guy was a bodybuilder before and an amateur boxer, super athletic, and he had knockout power. And I had never fought somebody like this. This guy was like 5-0 in the amateurs with like 5 knockouts, super quick, athletic, strong. He was the perfect size to give me trouble. He wasn't super small or like super long and thin with no muscle. He was like a good sized, bantamweight. And so I was hesitant to wanting to fight him because I knew he was good, and this was, my first fight back. But he's the only guy that would fight me. After that fight of the year performance, people were like, this guy's like a zombie. They were like, he might not have the best technique, but he is tough as nails. So some guys really didn't want to engage at that time, but this guy was more than willing to step up. So I fought him and ended up winning a decision. Just out wrestled him pretty much. I didn't really take any damage in that fight. And then from that fight, that was 2015. Who did I fight after that? So I fought another guy that, another step up. This guy had about 25 pro fights. So it was like one of those fights where I'm fighting like a journeyman.
Right.
Because the guy before that, he was like 2-2.
A lot of experience, but you need to
Yeah.
see, but not really that great yet. But
Yeah,
a lot
exactly.
of lot of time in there.
Yeah, like he's not gonna roll over for me, but he's still a threat.
Right.
Yeah, and I won that one in the first round too. Didn't take any damage. Well, I mean, I got cut on the head with an elbow, but nothing serious. And then at that time, I was already 5-1. And then I went through a really difficult time in a relationship at this time, about 2015, 2016, and I was engaged at the time, and it was a relationship that meant a lot to me. And I'm young, man, and so was the other person involved. She was very young too. We were in our early 20s. It didn't work out, and that was something that really, really changed me. It forced me to really look at my life and where I was headed, what I wanted, and it kind of took a. I don't want to say this in a in a negative way, but my relationship with her in a sense became like a crutch for success, because it was weird. But in the back of my mind, I was, this, me and this girl, we planned on getting married. And it was like, well, if fighting doesn't work out, if this, I can always get a regular job. And I found somebody that really loves me, and we love each other, and it'll work out. But I could tell that was a crutch, man. I don't really know how to explain it at the time, but it held me back. And I'll give you a good example of exactly what happened with this. So after that relationship, there was a guy, and he's actually in the UFC right now. You probably know, have heard of him. Adrian Yanez. And at the time, he was really, really, doing really well. And I didn't want to fight him. They had asked me to fight him a few times. I was like, no, like, he's a good fighter. And I was like, this is somebody I can fight on a higher level. I was already 6-1 at the time. I was like, I don't really want to risk this, because if I do lose, I'm like, this could set me back a few years to get to the UFC or anything. And, I was trying to be smart, but that relationship ended. And then, man, I was just like, you know what? Something clicked. Yeah. I was just like, I'm good. I can do this. I've been doing this for a long time. Like, I shouldn't be scared to fight anybody. And not that I was scared, I was just cautious. But I think having that crutch removed, it made me less cautious. And I went for it. I was like, you know what? They asked me to fight him, and then we got bumped up to co-main event. I was like, throw him in there. Like, I'm ready to go, man. I'm like, I buried my head in training, and I ended up winning a decision. And from there, I got the call to go to the Contender a year later. So this is 2018 now. And from the Contender, I fought a guy from Vince he's from the Northwest. I'm not sure if he's specifically from Oregon, but I know he's from the Northwest. Good wrestler. He was a state champion wrestler, and he was I believe he was a national champ in amateur boxing in some capacity. Like, this kid was really good. Vince Morales, he's also in the UFC. So I fought him on the Contender Series. We went to war. It wasn't exactly how I planned it, but man, fighting in front of Dana, like in that small stage, And my fight with Yanez, the one before, people complained about it. It was kind of boring. I had to really fight him technically. He was quick. It was kind of boring, like a wrestling match, but I had to do what I had to do. And so coming off of that performance, I was like, there's no way that I can be cautious like that in front of Dana. I was like, I mean, if I fight like that, I'm like, I might as well not even try. I'm like, I've seen guys with amazing knockouts in the Contender Series and they don't even get signed. I'm like, if I go in there and have a boring performance, like, it's not happening. So, man, when I jumped in that ring, I just, we threw down, and I came out on top, thank God, and I got the contract, man. And I'm 28 at this time, and I'm on top of the world. I'm 7-1. Only had lost that one decision that was fight of the year. Never really been beat in my eyes. I'm like, I've never really been.
Yeah, you lost, right?
Yeah,
In the record, but you never got beat up. You never
yeah,
there's differences. There's losses, and
yeah,
then there's somebody
yeah.
beat the fuck out of you, right?
Exactly,
Like there's
exactly,
I have
exactly.
both. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't we
And
all by the end?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what I love about the sport, man. It's an incredibly humbling sport, and that's why I like what Mike Tyson said. He goes, getting your ass kicked is the most humbling thing. And it is, and after that, so like I said, I had never really been beat up, but I was excited, and I healed up. I had a little bit of injuries from that fight. They called me within like 2 weeks. They were so excited. And Shelby was like, hey, man, we have a spot against Brian Kelleher on this New York card at Madison Square Garden
The
against
first
Kelleher.
one?
Yeah, my first one. And it
No,
was
the first Madison Square Garden card
yeah,
ever?
when Derek Lewis fought Cormier, I think that was
Okay.
that one.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
fuck,
was
man.
like,
Fighting in MSG, bro. It wasn't allowed. So it wasn't legal in New York when I was fighting, but
oh,
goddamn.
wow.
Because MSG's the mecca, man. MSG's the
Yeah.
mecca of sports. Like, you name it, it happened at MSG. Jordan, MSG.
Mhm.
Muhammad Ali, MSG. Right? Like,
Yeah.
it's sports mecca, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And god
No,
damn.
true. That's what everybody told me, man. And I didn't really realize that. As soon as I told people, I was like, hey, they said Madison Square Garden. And I love New York, but they were like, man, like, they go, not only, they go, any athlete would kill to perform there. Like, that is, like you said, the Mecca. And I didn't really soak that in until I was like, wow, they're right. And
Like, there's so many, who I think about the most is I mean, even Reggie Miller went nuts in
yeah,
like, and the game everyone remembers of Reggie Miller is the Garden game,
yeah,
the fucking
yeah,
Garden game, and the game and all of like half of Jordan's games that everyone's like, oh my god, like the double nickel, all of it's because it happened in the fucking Garden,
that's crazy.
and
Yeah.
there's just something to it, man. So
So
fuck
much
yeah, lucky
history
you.
there.
What's that?
Yeah. Oh, bro, I was ecstatic. I was like, this, it's like, 15 years old, man, on some church mats somewhere. You would have never thought that a church would have promoted MMA. And from 15 to 13 years later, Elliot, 13 years, 28, and
You're walking out in the fucking Garden, baby.
I'm like, it's like, story of my life. Here it goes. It's the upward trend.
Mm-hmm.
And then I tore my ACL. And then, so
here comes the
this,
pain of life.
yeah, exactly. So this happened literally 6 weeks before the fight, like halfway through the camp, because they gave me about 12 weeks notice. And I was happy about that. I'm like, they gave me
Right.
3 months notice. They really want me to do well. And halfway through the camp, I'm in a wrestling class, and I'm going with a guy, a lighter guy. I know, I can't risk getting injured. This guy's like 140 pounds. He's a 25er, an amateur. It's a really good fighter. But, I was like, okay, he's 140 pounds. I really don't have much of a chance of like getting seriously injured against a guy this small. And I slipped, man. We're wrestling, and there's a puddle of sweat. My wrestling shoe just steps in it at the right angle. Didn't happen to me for 15 years. And now at this time, the right spot, I slip, my knee bends completely outward, and it's just like an explosion. And I, immediately felt the pain, and I knew, like, right there, I knew, like, that's it. This is, my knee's done. I'm going to need, like, I was almost pretty sure. I was like, I'm going to need surgery, and I went, I believe it was maybe a day later, 2 days later, scheduled an appointment, told the UFC, and my doctor friend, he read the MRI for me, and he goes, man, he didn't shy away, bro. and he's a big fight fan. So he picks up the phone. He's like, "Oh man, Dom." He's like, "It's not good, man." He didn't. I was just like, "Oh shit." I was kind of hoping, because I had torn my MCL before. I was
What was
hoping like
that?
maybe it's just a fully torn MCL, and that's why it hurts more than it ever has.
So
But it
what did
could
this
be.
do to you though? Like this,
Oh
what did this do
man.
to you emotionally?
So
Is this part of the pain that you're talking about
yes.
of life?
Oh yeah.
Not the pain of the knee, right? So what did this do to you?
So
Because
yeah.
you've never been defeated before. You've probably never been that injured before,
Mm-mm.
right? And now here it is. You got to
Mm-mm.
pull out of a fight that
Yeah.
that's not fun. So go ahead.
No. Yeah. And I had never pulled out of a fight. I had never needed to. Like I said, this was. I mean, the worst I had ever had was like a grade 2 MCL tear. But this is what it did to me, man. This is something I haven't shared with most people, but I'll share it on the Gospel of Fire, man. But so this like 2 days later, man, I got the news and they said you're gonna need 9 months at least. And man, I cried in my closet that night, bro. I was living in Midtown, Midtown Houston, a nice little studio, you know, um, living by myself, enjoying life, getting ready for my Madison Square Garden. And I was like, well, I just sat in my room that night, bro. And then I went into my closet and I sat in my closet, pitch black, and just cried. Literally, it just started coming out. I was like, 9 months, for sure I'm not gonna fight. I don't know how well I'm gonna recover. I don't know. I had always heard about ACL rehab, and I was like, I'm gonna have to budget all the money I've saved up now, because I'm not gonna be able to fight for at least a
Oh, hold
year.
on. You're a pro fighter in the UFC. You make a ton of money, right?
Oh man, it's not what people think, man. It's difficult,
It's not
Um,
the NFL.
no, no, not at all, not at all. And I mean, this because you were a UFC fighter too, and it's a sport where you have to be self motivated and you have to really want it. Who wants to put their body through what we do? Especially if you're not getting compensated right away for it.
Well, probably
But
most likely not your whole career will you be compensated for it.
yeah, exactly. And
So
but yeah, man, it broke me, and it humbled me, because then I knew, um, this is what I knew was going to happen, and this is where a little bit of life experience, the pain of life, came into play. So if you remember when I talked to you about that relationship that didn't work out, that pain pushed me to step out and have more faith, and to really believe in the talents and the abilities that God had given me, and that he had this for me. So I stepped out and I started winning. And then I got to the UFC. So
mhm,
that step out of faith, man, led me right to the UFC. And
mhm.
I had dealt with it then. This time I knew. I said, this is what happens in these situations. At least this is how I took it. I said, I can either get really depressed, really sad, really bitter, go drink a lot, do whatever, and I can head down this path, and self-loathing, and feel really sorry for myself, and blame people and point the finger. Or knowing that I'm 28, I have 9 months to get this knee better. The UFC is behind me. They're going to pay for everything. And if I take this opportunity to not see this as a setback, and not let it get me down, or get me depressed, if I can just power through, and I can really will myself to see that this can be good. I said, I can become better and not bitter. And I had no choice. I was like, I know which way. There's two ways. I'm like, which way am I going to go? And I'm in the UFC now. I'm like, there's no choice. I gotta, power on.
You're talking about this idea of nothing happens to us, it happens for us, right? And
Exactly.
it's a very important thing here, that
Very.
nothing in your life can ever happen to you, because when something happens to you, good and bad, you become a victim of that thing, right?
Yes,
We just
exactly.
don't see the bad as a victimhood mentality.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, the
Hmm.
good, right? You're like, oh, look at the great thing that just happened to me. And
Exactly.
but now you're like, hold on, you are a victim of this really great thing, and it doesn't feel like victimhood, and I don't
Yeah.
want to be a fucking victim,
No,
right? I'm
exactly.
not a fucking victim.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
am in control of my own circumstances in life. And
Yes.
again, not the events. Your ACL is torn.
Hmm.
You can't control events. And this, and like when people hear this, they're like, what do you mean you're in control? You're in control of how
Yeah,
you respond.
exactly.
And that's what you're in control of.
Yes.
And if you can respond in a way that, what has this done for me?
Hmm.
Now we're talking. Now we're starting to roll golden, baby. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Tell me how are you able to see this as look at what has happened for me?
Yeah. And I agree, man. That is something, like you said, you have to really be able to see that. And I think you have to do, in those times, you have to do some soul searching. You have to really find it, because if you don't, you can misinterpret that event, and it can take you off somewhere, you shouldn't have gone. But this is what it did for me. The first thing, man, is I took that mindset of getting better, and I just started running with it. I went to rehab 5 days a week, 2 to 3 hours at a time, and every day I'm like, look, this is what my goal is. I started to think of it this way. I was like, look, I know the UFC has very high level competitors. I've been given this opportunity, in a sense. This is the way I started to look at it, to get better. It's almost as if the UFC says, hey, take 10 months off, drill, train, get better for 10 months. Go ahead and, take close to a year off and get better. And then you can, and it's like, okay, I didn't feel too bad, because then I started, being positive. I was like, I'm in the UFC. They like me. They support me. And they're pushing me, and they got me one of the best knee surgeons to fix my knee. And I was like, they're behind me, which really helped motivate me. And I was like, if I take this time, I can be drilling within 6 weeks. I can start drilling. Man, I started drilling, with my knee brace on, just getting better technique, just anything I could do to work around my knee, bro. It was 12 a.m., 1 a.m. I had a gym membership that was 24 hours. I'd get up. I'd be in the gym at 1 a.m., man, with my knee brace on, lifting, working grip, just working everything and anything. I didn't let nothing stop me. I knew that it could help me. And man, it did, So it just gave me a lot of ability to see things for the better. And one of the main things that I liked, Elliot, that it did for me was the discipline. I thought that I had discipline before, and I did, but to a certain extent. But this took it to another level, because the doctors told me, they said, hey, I've never been a drinker, but I would socially drink every now and then. And they told me, they said, hey, try not to drink any alcohol if you want your healing to go faster, like nothing. I was like, sure, that's not a problem. I really want my knee to get better. I can cut that out. But once I did that, like not even a drop, I didn't really have the desire to go out and drink anymore socially. All I wanted to do was like, I was like, kind of like, why wasn't I doing this before? Why before would I would train 3 to 4 times a week or 5 times a week, go out, have a great time on weekends, and not that there's anything wrong with, having a good time. There's not. You need that time. But it was to where I wasn't as focused as I needed to be able to compete in the UFC. Let's just say that, right? So it gave me that discipline to really, really shape up in my diet, in my sleeping, in everything, man, and my mindset. And I was very thankful for it at the end of that, because it gave me a lot of good habits.
So you come through, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have your first UFC fight at some point.
Yep.
And
this was 9 months later.
So 2019 now.
2019, July of 2019.
They gave me right before the end of the world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. They gave me the this kid from Brazil. He was a jungle fight champion. I think he was, at the time, I think we had the same record, 8-1, and I was 8-1. And his only loss was a decision loss. I forgot who he lost to. It was in the
He's
UFC.
like you.
Yeah, exactly. Black belt, really, really good guy. And he was a bigger bantamweight because he was coming down from 45. So he lost his first fight at 45, and he came down to 35. But I was still a little bit bigger than him. I'm pretty tall for my division, so I wasn't too worried about it. And I was like, okay, this guy's coming down from 45, but it's not like exactly he's going to be a lot bigger than me, So I wasn't too worried about it. We ended up having a fight in San Antonio. I lost a split decision, and this was 9 months after my surgery, and I was really upset, man. So talk about, I mean, we've got what, in 2019, we're talking 14 years now, and I'm feeling good. I'm growing as a person, man. I'm learning more humility. I'm learning all these things, better habits. I'm learning like what really has value in life. I believe that's one thing also that it taught me, was it's not all about winning and money. And look at me, like you said, look how good I am. It's just, I don't know, man.
I just think that crumbles. that
Yes, yes,
crumbles. And
yes,
you see everyone crumble. Connor crumbled. John
yes.
Jones crumbles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this
True.
I am great. This like you know, Muhammad Ali didn't crumble, but Muhammad Ali had a much greater purpose in his life
Mm-hmm.
than
Yes,
fighting,
yes,
right?
yes.
Like there was something like
They believe in something high. There's
he
something
bel
higher that, yes, I
yeah,
agree.
he fought for agree with it, disagree with it, whatever you want to say about it.
Hmm.
He fought for a much higher purpose than
Oh yeah,
fighting, you know? And
yes,
that's why he was able to give it up, right?
yeah,
At the
yeah.
height of his career, he was able to give up fighting because it wasn't about fighting.
Hmm.
You know,
No,
so
true.
these
Yeah,
other
I agree.
guys, everyone else crumbles, man.
Yeah,
Everyone else crumbles in the fight game. Not in other sports, but the fight game's too intense,
yeah, yeah.
you
It's
know?
it's gonna it's
It's
gonna
too
test your
fucking
soul,
hard.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
too
yeah,
hard, you
yeah,
know? And
for
people
sure.
can't grasp that. Like the dark cloud that goes above your head when you lose a fight,
Mm. Oh yeah,
you know?
yeah,
The
yeah.
dark cloud, and it doesn't go away.
No, not
Like
until
there's
you win.
not until
Or
you win. Yeah, I know.
yeah,
So
yeah,
and you still probably got pieces of them. You know, I
yeah,
haven't fought since
exactly.
2011, and I
Yeah,
still probably
exactly.
got a little piece of dark cloud up
Yeah,
here somewhere. I'm like, God damn it, you know? And you
yeah,
have to
no,
deal with that shit.
yeah.
You know, you
No,
have to deal with that shit.
I agree 100%. And man, so I'm going through this, and I'm a person that likes to reminisce a lot, and I like to look back and think things through. And I'm like, okay, man, it's been 14, 15 years. But I'm glad because I realized the skills and the emotional and the maturity it gave me to deal with this. So I wasn't, I guess you could say, before the knee, before the relationship, before these pains of life, I I really didn't know how to deal with stuff like this. But those were training wheels, and it's kind of like it got more intense. And I'm like, okay, like I have a hurdle, I jumped it. And then I get another hurdle and it's bigger. And I'm like, damn, I barely jumped that one. And then there's another. I'm like, well, when does this end? I'm like, this isn't the trajectory that all of a sudden this trajectory took a huge dip and then it's like up and then now I'm on a roller coaster. So it was difficult. I was really upset that I got robbed. I felt I was robbed in that fight, bro. It was my hometown. I'm sorry, my home state of Texas. This kid's from Brazil, and I mean, it's in the
Sure,
past. It's
sure.
in the
That's
past,
how
but
you feel.
yeah, but it's one of those things where, and I don't have. I'm the type of guy, man, that if I lose, I lose. I have no problem with that. I never have. If I'm beat, I'm beat. But it was a close fight. I just thought I got the W and I didn't, and I was really upset, man. So I'm coming through these pains, and I'm like, okay, I'm 29 now. Finally got to make my debut after what I've been through with the ACL, and then I get robbed in my home state of Texas. These guys, I felt that these guys, literally these judges, took this fight from me. And I'm like, this is out of my control. Like, I did my job. I
Your victim
literally,
mentality. Look what
yes,
they did
yes,
to me.
exactly, bro. That's what started happening. I was like, I trained my ass off. I was disciplined for the last 9 months. All I did was think about this. I got the opportunity. I performed. I'm like, I won. And then the judges were like, nah, you didn't. I was like, what? Whoa. Like, I felt like they took it from me. And it upset me, man. And it sent me down a path of, I was angry for a little bit. And it took me some time to really get through that process again, to remember, look, how can this make you better? How will this make you better?
So
And
you had to change from to me to for me.
yes, exactly, exactly. And I was like, okay, look, let's think of it this way. Had you beaten him, maybe you would have gone on to fight a guy, because you know how the UFC works. If you start winning, they step you up. And I was like, maybe they would have stepped me up against somebody I wouldn't have been ready for. Because after that fight, that kid that I fought, he fought another guy. They stepped him up, and it was a hard fight, but he wasn't ready for it, and he lost. And I was like, well, maybe I would have won against him, and then gotten that same guy, and then I would have lost to that guy. Who knows, right? So I started to say, maybe I'm just gonna drill work on it. It was a split decision. I'm like, whatever. The UFC wasn't upset about it. They knew that they felt the same. I talked to some of the matchmakers and they told me, they're like, we thought you won. So I wasn't too upset about it. And then I go through this process of how it works for me, get disciplined even more. I keep growing. So,
Mm-hmm.
I just roll it off, man. I'm getting good now by this point, Elliot, of rolling with these punches now. Now I'm like, whatever. And so then we have February of 2020, right? Literally the
Right before pandemic,
yes,
right before the world ends.
yes, right there. And they offered me a fight against Journey Newson in Houston, in my hometown of Houston, at the Toyota Center. And I was like, there you go. I was like, there's the silver lining. I was like, look, I would have probably never gotten this matchup had I not lost to Felipe,
Sure.
because Journey was coming off of a tough loss too. I forget the name of the guy. It was some kid from Alpha Male.
It doesn't
He
matter,
was
but go
coming.
ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, he was coming off of a decision loss from some kid in Alpha Male. So I'm like, look, here's the silver lining. I'm getting an opportunity to basically get my redemption, get my first UFC win in my hometown of Houston at the Toyota Center against a guy who's coming off of a loss. And he was a favorable matchup for me. This guy was 5'5". I'm like, I got 6 inches of reach on this guy. Or no, on reach, I don't remember, bro. It was like 74 to 60. It was 9 inches of reach. 9 inches of reach, and I had like 6 inches of height.
Right.
I wasn't even worried, which was a mistake. But I was like, okay, I'm gonna basically be sparring a guy that, like, he shouldn't be able to touch me. And I was like, in my hometown, I'm like, this couldn't have worked out better. I was like, this is great. And I trained hard, man. I didn't take Journey lightly. I watched him. I underestimated him a little bit. We get to the fight. I crack him with a head kick and hurt him, and I tried to finish him. I saw he was hurt. I tried to finish him, rushed him. I got countered, and ended up losing that fight by TKO. He caught me with a good shot. I tried to recover, but I couldn't. The ref stopped it, and he got me. And that was my first real loss. And bro, this was 38 seconds in Toyota Center. Everybody, how I had thousands of people there watching me because my whole career was built in Houston. And man, bro, that was this. I mean, talk about the pains of life. This was one I had never felt. I thought this was my golden opportunity.
You've never been beat up. This is
No.
the first time you got beat up.
This dude, and I had this fight in my hands. I remember after the fight, he got taken out in a stretcher and he had a neck brace and they were rolling him out. He didn't really move his neck. And I was like, why is this guy in a stretcher? I'm like, I'm the one that lost. I'm like, what? I was like, this doesn't make sense, I was like, what the hell?
And you for real lost. That you can't say you didn't lose.
Yeah. I was like, what's up with him? And it turns out, man, his manager manages one of my teammates. I don't have the same manager, but my teammate has the same manager. He goes, man, your boy Dom, he goes, that head kick, he goes, we think it really messed up his jaw. So turns out I broke his jaw, dude, and he had a lot of pain in his jaw and he had to take some time off. But I was like, wow, like I had him finished. If I had taken the time to step back, maybe throw a jab or anything, just maybe let the round fade out. It's hard to fight with a broken jaw. And I was upset. I was like, I had this fight in the palm of my hand. Like, and then to lose like that in front of my hometown. The first time that I went to the Toyota Center, Elliot, was 2007. Do you remember when Matt Serra beat St. Pierre, that upset?
Yeah, of course. Who doesn't remember that? Who doesn't?
Yeah, I know, right? Bro, I was there at 17 years old, 2007. I was in the Toyota Center, way up in the bleachers. And bro, I remember this. I was like, I will fight here one day. Took 13, at that time I was
14 years now.
14 years,
No,
bro.
12 years. 13,
yeah,
somewhere
12,
in there. Whatever. We'll fucking do the math.
Yeah, 29, 17, 20. It took 12 years, dude. And I was like, 12 years later, I was there, and I was thinking about all these things of how great this was going to be for me. And turns out it was the most crushing
of your life.
Yes. Yeah. Like talk about a dip when you're talking about stocks and crypto. This dip was like, bro, it crashed. I was like way down.
Like crypto's probably going to.
Yeah.
I'm not paying attention. If it hasn't already, I don't fucking know.
Up and down.
But, so tell me, what did it do to you? So what was it like? What was the next week like? What was the next month like? What, because then the world ends too, right?
Yeah.
And everything gets canceled. So like,
yeah,
your small little world ended, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the whole world ends.
Yeah.
Or at least gets stopped.
Yeah. And it was crazy, man, because I didn't really know how to process it. That I was, I was powering through everything, learning how to get through everything at that point. And then it was like, here's the biggest one. Like I didn't even see this one coming. And then the pandemic happened, and I had a lot of time to think about it, and I was really upset. It just got me very angry, not to where I was angry at myself, one, for making the mistake, but angry at like this is unfair, you know. And
That's a
like I said,
terrible
man, I'm a
word.
person of faith, and for me, I was like, God, like, why did you let this happen to me? Like, I see what you've done in these areas and how you fixed things inside of me that you didn't like, but I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, we went through the rehab program, I got better, and now I'm punished for it. You know, like that's kind of how I felt. I was blaming, and then I was like going through, you know, certain things. It's like, man, this is why I'm struggling here, and I should have done this, and I could have done this in my life. And you know, I'm like 29 and I'm down on my luck, and in the UFC, I'm like, I was just really upset, man. And I kind of had to take the same approach, bro. I knew within like maybe 2 weeks of crying in my closet, I was like, all right, like,
Fighters in their closets. Fighters in their
bro.
closets or fighter in their car, right? It's
Yeah,
one or
yeah,
the
yeah.
other. You
So
cry
the
in the
closet's
closet
my
and you
place,
cry in the
man.
car, right? You
I
know?
cry in the
Oh,
closet. Yeah, no, the place where nobody could see me, you know, and I could cry as loud and
I
as
would
long as
pull in
I
the
want.
garage and cry in my car, man.
Bro, it's the best thing, man. You know, you let it out, you know.
Yeah.
And I felt so much better after I just let a lot of it out, the frustration, the emotion, the pain, the embarrassment. I was like, this literally couldn't have been more embarrassing. I mean, honestly, like I was like
Oh,
38 seconds. Wow. I was like, that's pretty embarrassing. I mean, you know, that's for me, that was always the scariest thing, Elliot, for me, was getting put down like that and embarrassed. I mean, I don't see any other fight that could be more embarrassing than just getting your ass kicked pretty fast.
yeah.
And it hurt.
So what's
But
happened since? Have
so,
you?
so, wow, man, like I literally took the same road and I said, we can become bitter or better. And I started to, you know, be positive, get really, really serious and disciplined with everything in my life, to even more so. So like I told you, this just kept growing.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, I'm like, here's what I want to do. I know what I did wrong. I'm going to take an extra 3 to 4 hours to drill these certain things in my stand up that I know I need to fix. I'm going to take an extra 3 to 4 hours to drill a week in my jiu-jitsu. I was just like, we're going to take an extra 3 to 4 or 5 hours, literally add it onto my training schedule. And I'm just going to drill and just train more. Like I was like, I have to give more because I'm 0-2 in the UFC. I'm like, if I lose another one, I'm out. I know that. So I said, I really need to give it my all. And that way, if I look back, whether no matter what happens in my next fight, I can look back and say I gave it my everything, and I can be at peace with that. I said, what I won't accept is if I just loathe and cry and complain, don't get any better, kind of drag my, you know, my attitude around, and and that victim mentality, and I fight again, and then I lose, and then I'm even more bitter and I'm pissed. I was like, I need to be able to process this correctly so that no matter what happens, I come out a better person, period. You know?
So when's your next fight?
Well, I talked to Shelby and it's supposed to be this summer. So, you know, it's been a
So you didn't
year.
fight last year at all after that.
No, the pandemic, dude, I drilled 5, 6, 7 days a week, 4 or 5 hours a day. I just became a drill machine. And, it opened my
Was
eyes
that
to a
by
lot of
choice?
things,
Did they
man.
offer you some fights and you turned
No,
them
they
down?
haven't. Yeah, no. Since the pandemic, it's been really slow. And Shelby's just like, um, what he told me was, you know, obviously the pandemic is going on, but he said, look, by the summer we should have something for you. Things are backed up. Just stay ready, you know. So that's what I've been doing, man. And I've been able to travel, to train, and share this with people. And this is like, this leads to exactly here. This is where we're at. From 20, what was it, 2005, bro, to 2021. I'm at that point to where I've accepted a lot of things, but I'm happy, man. I can truly say that I have peace in that I've accepted the things that you can't control what happens to you sometimes. These events happen, but like you said, you can control how you respond. And that it's huge, because if I responded the other way, like that's not going to help me. I noticed like responding this way may feel good. I may get, you know, go out and drink and get crazy and do all these things, you know, these
But it doesn't
these
actually
aspects.
feel good,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I'm like,
Like it doesn't
yeah,
actually feel good. Like,
no.
you know, like like dudes on the internet with all these girls and all this money,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
When you see this
No.
like on Instagram or
Yeah.
wherever, it's cool, sure,
Yeah.
but it doesn't feel good,
No, it
right? It
doesn't do
doesn't
anything
feel
for
good.
you.
That's not what we're supposed to be doing as adults and as humans, right? There's
Exactly.
that you're missing something,
No,
you know?
exactly.
So,
Exactly.
and
No.
I'm not going to say you have to get married, right?
No,
I
yeah.
won't say that either, but that's not what it is. So,
No, I agree, man. And you'll see that with fighters, and I've seen it too over the years in this sport, and I'm sure you have too. Guys that get it happens, they get too distracted with the money and the fame and the women and the attention. And it will literally take you the opposite direction, and that's the fastest way to have a bad career, I
yeah,
believe. You have to be focused. And that's, I believe, man, for me, like that's something that God really, really changed in me. And this is where I'm at, to where the philosophy, in a sense, that I've been through, is that those things, like we were talking about, all the money, I felt that these experiences, man, really cleaned that out of me. Because I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, I haven't had attention from girls, and people hit you up on Instagram, and
of
they,
course.
yeah, and they're like, oh, and then now people just want to be my friend because, oh, you're in the UFC, they're like this and that, and there's attention that comes with it. There's all kinds
Bro,
of
the
things that
girls on
come.
Instagram are crazy, bro.
Oh,
I had a
yeah,
fight of one of I'll keep names out of it.
yeah,
He lost his fight, right? He lost his fight, and he has a message on Instagram just from some random, and he reads it to me. He goes, "Bro, the message literally reads, I'm sorry you got beat up tonight. If you want to beat something else up, here's my number." And I'm like, oh my God, like
yeah,
you're just like, holy shit, really?
yeah,
Like that, like
yeah,
literally like that,
yeah.
you know?
And man, when you're a fighter that's
You just got beat
down on
up.
it, yeah, you're like, exactly. And but yeah, dude, these experiences, like you said, like that's not what it's about. And I
Yeah,
and I felt that coming out of me, man. Like through these pains of life, I felt that vanity, that want, that desire that wasn't good for fame and money. I felt that leave me. I literally felt it leaving. Like, okay, I'm not gonna just get a fight bonus or get these good fight checks just to buy myself a BMW. Before, maybe I would have thought about it. I'm like, I want a nice car. Why? So I could show off, and I want to show that I'm successful, and I've worked for this my whole life. But dude, after these losses, I'm like, this is I'm gonna drive a Prius. I don't care,
dude, it's so
But
interesting. The nice car thing. I can remember
yeah,
when I was fighting, I wanted an Escalade.
yeah, yeah,
I wanted an Escalade,
yeah,
and I wanted an Escalade until I actually had enough money to buy an Escalade. And then
yeah,
once I had
yeah.
enough money to buy an Escalade, I was like, I don't need a fucking Escalade.
Exactly.
It's so interesting. It's
Right?
so interesting. So,
Yeah.
man, as we close up here, I got two questions that I like to ask as we close. One, yesterday wasn't the first time that you and I have met, right? Like you've
Hmm.
been coming and visiting Colorado for a little bit.
Yes,
What
sir.
what made you come up to me yesterday and ask to talk? Like what was that?
Um, like I said, man, it was always that connection. But here's if I can simplify it, this is and give you a simple answer. Not many people know much about humility, and it's a very, very thing. It's, and like I said, I'm a person of faith, and if you've read through the New Testament at all, or have read through the Bible at all, Christ, his ministry, at the heart of it, man, was humility and mercy. And people that know anything about humility, bro, they've been through something. That's something that you don't just get. You don't get that level of understanding unless you've been through that. You've had the experiences, and that's something that's priceless. Those experiences that teach you and give you a level of understanding of give you an understanding of humility. That's something that you can't teach. It comes out of you through a process, and I could see that in you, bro. I could see like real, genuine humility that is like priceless. It's gold, and I could just feel it from
I
your
appreciate
words,
it.
from your posts. And dude, that's the connection. It wasn't anything else. I said, this guy knows something about being broken and about being humble,
Oh,
and that's what drew me, man. Honestly, that's it.
for sure.
You
I
know?
appreciate it, man. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
You fall to the bottom.
yeah,
When you fall to
yeah,
the bottom, it sucks.
yeah,
If you can
yeah.
get back up, if you can get back up and you can show people
Exactly.
that, man, it's amazing.
Hmm.
So my last question is always this. I believe everyone has a power in the world. I believe there's a superpower within all of us. And it's not what makes us money. It's not what makes us famous or it gets all that vain stuff like the girls on Instagram
Yeah,
or the escalades, right?
yeah, yeah.
It's that thing that makes us amazing in the world. What would you say your power is?
Man, for me, I mean, I could say a million things, and probably some of them would have partial truths to them. But mine, Elliot, is my faith. I was raised in the church. My grandfather was an evangelist. He preached in over 100 countries. He had a huge ministry. My father picked that up, and he taught me and my brother the same thing. And man, my superpower, dude, is the faith. I started in the church. God has always led me, and every time I wanted to quit, he would give me signs. He would give me signs. He would bring me along. He'd give me the strength in prayer and everything, bro. And he's brought me this far. So that faith, that confidence in knowing that I'm here for a reason and it's not random, you know, that that has really just pushed me forward, man. I can't tell you anything else. I can't say, hey, Elliot, I'm just a hell of a guy and I'm that good and I'm that strong. It's
Yeah.
not, So that's what it is, man.
I totally understand, man. Hell yeah. Man, tell everyone where they can reach you.
Hey
Where they
guys,
can
you can reach me at Dom Pilarte MMA. My first name, it's longer, but it's on my Instagram. It's just Dom DOM and Pilarte Pilarte MMA. And I mean, shoot me a message. I interact with the fans. Ask me anything. Love to hear from you guys. And thank you, bro. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
of
having me
course,
on the
man.
Gospel of Fire. This
Yeah,
has
man.
been a blessing to me, dude.
Man, there's the only asset you can't ever get back is time. Right?
Yeah.
You can't get more of it. So we get what we get.
Hmm.
And so I really appreciate whenever I get to talk to anybody because I
Yeah.
get to spend time with them and it's just me and them. And
Yeah.
we get
Yeah.
to spread a message, right? And we get to spread the message of the fire for me is the gospel. So,
Yeah.
walk into it, go do it. Go ahead and get broken. Watch, you've been broken. I've been broken. We've all been broken.
Exactly.
Anybody
Yeah.
that's ever done anything for real has been broken.
Hmm.
So don't be scared of it,
Yes.
but do it anyway.
Exactly.
But do it anyway.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
guys, as always, Dom has his power and I have my unique power, whatever it is in the world. Don't try to be Dom and don't try to be me. Everybody go out there in the world and find your power.